Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to the Cool Kids Lunch Table Podcast with PJ and Mike. Now find yourself a seat at their table.
Hello, and welcome to the Cool Kids Lunch Table Podcast with PJ and Mike. I'm Mike.
I'm PJ.
And today we're going to be exploring and celebrating the career of Frank Miller, the American comic book creator and writer and screenwriter and director. And to help us out, we have Kevin Smith, and not that Kevin Smith who wrote Clerks and who's one half of Jay and Silent Bob. We have our own Kevin Smith. Welcome, Kevin.
The better Kevin Smith, I might even say.
I don't know about that. I couldn't have done Dogma, which is, I believe, the best one. But thank you very much. It's awesome to be here.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I'm really excited to get into it.
Mm-hmm. And let folks at home, let me tell you more about our Kevin Smith. His favorite superhero is Superman. His favorite films are This Girl Friday, The Dark Knight, The Dirty Dozen. And folks at home, if you think PJ knows a lot about comic books, this guy is an expert, knows tons about comic books. So he was the perfect guy to bring in and talk about Frank Miller, because PJ just saw Frank Miller live in person, I believe, for a book signing or a book review, right?
Yep.
So, PJ kind of start us off with that. This was your book, and then we'll and we're not sponsored by him, nothing like that. We're here just
no, we're not sponsored by Frank Miller. We just appreciate what he's given to us over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I was doom scrolling the internet on Instagram, and I got an advertisement that said, "Come see Frank Miller in New York City." And I'm like, well, I live right near the city of New York. So I bought tickets to it, and it was hosted by Scott Snyder. And Scott Snyder is the biggest thing in Batman at the moment. I'm like, all right, Absolute Batman is gonna interview The Dark Knight Returns. I'm like, this seems like a no-brainer for me. Let me go check this out. And so we went to the city. We got an autograph of his new book. He has a new autobiography out, whatever, which I haven't had a chance to read yet. But I was like into it. Everything he was saying was really like, oh man, talking about all these old books that I've read made me want to go back and reread all the books. And then as I'm rereading, I'm like, well, now we should just do an episode about Frank Miller, because now I'm in this headspace. So yeah, that's where the Frank Miller episode has come from. And yeah, like Mike said, I wanted to bring in someone who really could wax poetically about comic books and Frank Miller. And that's where Kev comes in. I have known Kev now for, it's gotta be over 20 years or close to it.
It's going to be it's 16, I think, because I started working at the shop in 2010.
Okay. So 16 years.
It is a shockingly long time every time I think about it.
Yes.
I was the kid at the comic book store, and now I am very much not anymore when I walk in. But yeah, no, I feel like I came in at maybe the weirdest time for Frank Miller comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because that was probably right around. Was that right around DK2?
DK2. I have the thing up here because I'm like, I'm going to want to be right about this. Apparently, DK2 is 2001, which is shocking.
Is it that far back?
It's so much farther back than I thought it was.
Ooh, wow.
But boy, was I there for Dark Knight 3: The Master Race.
Oh,
Kevin, my question for you is, if you could tell the folks at home, what is Frank Miller's, I guess, greatest hits? What makes him special besides bringing these greatest hits? What makes him that signature, that name? Bam! His name itself is just as big as Clark Kent, at this point,
Yeah, it's true. He is one of those guys that, like, when they make movies of his stuff, they put his name on posters because he gets big enough.
Yeah.
What I think he is the hits are, as far as I'm concerned, inside the superhero genre. It's Batman Year One, which is as good and as permanent a fixture of the genre and of Batman as you can get. That is, I think, if you pulled 100 Batman fans, 85 of them would tell you that is how the first year of his career unfolded. I think the remainder of them would probably be young enough that Scott Snyder got them with Year Zero, which is fine. It's cement. Dark Knight Returns, which is kind of the best last Batman story and has so many of those like fundamental Batman moments, several of which are some of my favorite comic moments of all time. And then you have Daredevil, his run on Daredevil, which is so foundational and takes the character from just kind of what he was before, which is not quite Spider-Man and not quite an Avenger and not quite a lot of things, and makes him the character that he is then for the rest of time. He is still, in many ways, Frank Miller's Daredevil. He
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
the most Catholic, the most guilty, the most ninja character. So I think those are the hits. And I think what makes him jump out is what makes him that big is that no one before was willing to make these characters kind of grindhousey the way and crime stories the way he has. I think a lot of people since have taken this lesson and made it worse, but he is one of those guys in the same, I think, conversation as Watchmen, who took what was fundamentally a children's medium or an unserious medium and made it serious with a certain level of artistic quality that really just elevated everything around it.
And I would say that Frank Miller's Dark Knight, which is always in the same conversation, like you said with The Watchmen, Dark Knight holds up better. I don't really ever feel the need to reread The Watchmen all that often.
Mm-hmm.
But I do reread The Dark Knight Returns, even if there are things about The Dark Knight Returns that I don't love very much, but that I've grown to appreciate more over time. But it holds up better because I don't know if that's just a testament to his quality of writing and skills being a writer and an artist or not, but it holds up better. It's better storytelling. It's dark and gritty, but ages better than Watchmen doesn't age well. It doesn't age well. Whereas his stuff does.
I'm curious. Of course, I'm curious what Kevin says. What I'm hearing is Alan Moore wrote that, which is another guy who's very respected. So that's a pretty bold statement, PJ. So I'm curious of what Kevin says, and I guess my other question is: have Frank Miller and Alan Moore, have they ever worked together? Do you guys know? Or
I can't think of a team up.
I can't think of anything where they would have.
I'm just curious. Okay.
There's going to end up being like a one shot or a short story for the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen that I'm not thinking of. But I think Watchmen is fundamentally, it's a more literary story. And that's to me the reason why it's when The Dark Knight doesn't appear on the Time 100 novels list and Watchmen does. I think that's a fair call. For me, I think what I can, and I agree with PJ that I would reread Dark Knight Returns a bunch more. It's a lot less dense. There's not a lot of playing with mediums. Watchmen includes long stretches of text that are plot relevant. As it turns out, you can glaze over them, but they end up being important. But I think what gets Dark Knight Returns more in my circulation on a day-to-day basis is I think that Dark Knight Returns has this really special quality of finding new kind of propulsive moments. It's almost like if you're playing Mario Kart, and this is a dumb metaphor, I'm sure, but if you're playing Mario Kart and you just you need to, every once in a while, you got to hit one of those things where it just really speeds you up, or you get a mushroom or whatever. Dark Knight Returns is incredible at that because you do a couple of pages of Batman, of Bruce Wayne specifically, because he's no longer Batman, being old, right? He's old and he's achy and he's racing cars and this would be a good death. It's great, but it's not like when somebody big at a wrestling match comes out. You don't pop for that.
Yeah.
But when he gets the costume back on and the rain on my skin is a new baptism or something like that, that you're I'm back in, I'm racing through the next couple of pages. And you get both big plot moments and small, just little character moments throughout that really just feel like they actively re-engage you and they make you just whoosh through the next chunk. And that's what gets me every time.
Gotcha.
And sticking with The Dark Knight Returns, which is most people probably consider one of the best Batman stories ever told, right? My negativity towards it has always been the treatment of Superman.
Yeah.
And I say this on a Frank Miller episode where we're celebrating the works of Frank Miller. I think if there's one character that Frank Miller just always misses the mark on, it's Superman. But when I was hearing him talk about why he wrote it that way, it changed a little bit for me. Because when I was at that thing in the city and they asked him why was Superman the bad guy at the end of this? Why was that the one he had to fight? And he said, well, this was going to be the last Batman story. He didn't know there was going to be a Dark Knight Returns 2 or 3 or 3.5, whatever you want to call those one shots, right? He didn't know any of that. At that point in time, he was writing in his mind his version of the last Batman story. And he said, if the Dark Knight, if Batman represents all that is dark in the DC universe, the person he has to fight at the very end is the person that is the light in the DC universe. Yeah, he could fight the Joker every time. He could fight Two-Face every time, and they're in the book, right? But is that really how you're going to end it? Is it going to just be another version of Batman versus any one of his rogues gallery? Or is it going to be his complete opposite? What is what is the complete opposite of the darkness? And so he had to find a way to get Superman to be the person he fights, because Superman's not going to just show up and punch him in the nose. Like, it's not going to happen. So how do we get to this? And that's why he came up with the plan of like, well, now he's a government stooge and he's working for them. And what is the line? Something like, he always put too much faith in people with badges and flags or something like that. He says, right? Like that's the whole thing. Like, how do we get him to fight? And when he explained why he wanted him to fight Superman at the end, I accepted it a little bit more. I'm like, all right, I get that maybe he took some liberties here to get to this final battle. And now I understand the reasoning behind it, which does make me appreciate it a little bit more.
I agree with you that that's always been my, that's the sore spot for me with that, is that he just truly won the idea that Superman would just sign out and just like,
right.
Be not just a cop, but the cop, like the most fundamentally, I will do what they tell me guy, because that's just never been my take on what Superman is. But then that he absolutely gets whipped has never sat right. I always used to just justify it as, well, he lets him win at the end, because it's not like he, you know, when he gives him that wink, he could just take him up right then and there. But right. Like, you know,
I also have interpreted that way. Like, Superman knows he's not going to kill Batman. They're not fighting to the death. And he knows that also Batman serves a greater purpose in this world. So we need a Batman.
Yeah.
I interpret it the very same way. And then, you know, switching gears a little bit from Batman back to Daredevil, Born Again might be the best Daredevil like comic book of all time.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah, to cut you off, but I have some of my stats here. You guys correct me, all right. So Daredevil Born Again was 86, and also 86 is saying is The Dark Knight Returns. So you're talking about, holy cow. I mean, that reminds me of people like Elton John. They released 2 of his best albums within the same year. I mean, holy, that pen must have been on fire when he was writing. Holy, or his typewriter. Holy cow, those keys were flaming. Jeez.
That period, because I have it here. Like Ronin's out by 83.
Yeah, Ronin is out
like,
too. Yeah.
He's absolutely, he's kind of like the ultimate encapsulation of how like comic book writers used to just be in New York City, and they used to just take the vibe in and pump it out into these books.
Yeah.
Because he's in Taxi Driver in New York City, in maybe his own mind. I don't know how real that was for his lived experience, but like he's putting that all into the books, and it's incredible stuff.
And what makes
go ahead.
And what makes Born Again so significant? Like from his other run of Daredevil from 79 to 83. What's the and it's funny because they have Dark Knight Returns and Born Again, so it's almost kind of like this. It seems like that Born Again, something happens. So what makes that one so significant?
I mean, the story itself is just top notch. I mean, the whole idea of Karen Page having to sell Matt Murdock's secret identity to a drug dealer for a hit of heroin, and then it gets sold from there to the Kingpin, and then, I mean, I don't want to recap the whole book. I could, but I think it moves him forward in a way. Because even his first run on Daredevil, which is great and introduces Elektra and all that stuff, is all great and important to the mythos of Daredevil. But it is still status quo-y, if not a better status quo. Whereas Born Again pushes him forward into just a new light. And it also like sort of cements the Catholicism element of his character more, and it's just so good. I don't know how else to. When you read something so good and so defining to a character, it's.
Yeah,
I mean, Mary was it Maggie, Sister Maggie, being his mother after his mother having abandoned him, and now the mother is the one that basically brings him back to life. And
it's so good as a Daredevil story that it is one of the big, just as a full aside, he just casually throws out one of the best Captain America lines ever written.
Yeah.
Actually 2 of them, because both about Cap and from Cap, because it's, I think because like all kinds of stuff goes on. I'm not conflating, right? This is Nuke.
This is Nuke. Yeah.
And, you know, Cap shows up at the end in Thor, because like this is New York City. The Avengers are also here, and they want to know why several buildings in Hell's Kitchen are on fire. Thor like gives him Cap gives him the word, and Thor just like calls down a storm, and Cap's voice is described as a voice that could command gods. And then the general talks to him, and he drops, "I'm loyal to nothing, General, nothing except the dream," with like the American flag flying in the background. It's incredible. And this has one of the best turns from the down part of a story to the up part of a story,
Oh.
as far as I'm concerned, in fiction. Because with Daredevil's Secret Out, Kingpin takes apart his life, takes apart his law practice, messes with his money, messes with his relationship,
Everything.
but he cannot, because this is a Wilson Fisk who just hates this man so much. He cannot help himself, because he is not the respectable businessman that Wilson Fisk would like to be. He cannot help himself from also being an animal about it. And he blows up Matt Murdock's house. And up until that point, again, not to recap it all, Matt Murdock does not know who's doing this. He just thinks his life is falling apart. And it is only then that he pieces together that he's under attack, and he immediately knows who it is. And he's like on his knees in front of his burning home, and he goes, "It was a really good, nice work, Dick Kingpin, but you shouldn't have signed it."
Right.
And then from then, that's the character's up off his knees, and he is whipping ass from beginning to end of the
He
story
really is.
from that point. And it's an incredible moment for Kingpin, who goes from, in this story, really gets cemented as the transition from fat mobster to this kind of the kind of tragic thing that D'Onofrio ends up being in the shows of, like, this is a person who only knows violence. This is a fundamentally violent person who believes that is the solution to his problems, but knows that what he should want is to be, a man in a suit in an office.
Mm-hmm.
And it is also, Matt Murdock is Catholic. Matt Murdock would love to be a nicer guy, but he is ninja trained, and the minute he knows where to go, he is a mad dog when you mess with his people. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, that was really well said, man. Holy cow.
There's also an odd bit where doesn't Foggy take his girlfriend at one point?
I think so. Foggy's just like, me and your girl are leaving. It's a lot of trouble.
Yeah, like, what? Yeah, we're together now. And he's like, well, because we had to get rid of his girlfriend so that we could get back with Karen.
Yeah, just in time for my namesake to come on in later.
Exactly. Yeah.
But no, it is, and before we leave his Daredevil, I do think it's worth saying that everything that's good about Bullseye really comes from
that. Yeah.
His run on the main book before, like, the first time, the psychopathic pain, saying, cavalier nature of him is all Frank Miller.
Yeah.
Killing Elektra with her own sigh, just like talking about magic tricks, is iconic. It's incredible. And it ends up making Bullseye a character that you can put on TV, and you could put on the Thunderbolts, you could put in the Dark Avengers years later. Incredible.
I mean, the TV shows that we're getting now, like the Born Again or even the Netflix stuff, though, you don't get any of that without Frank Miller, his take on the character, which is a lot of, you could say the same about the Batman stuff. You don't get any of the Batman movies that we have, 89 through present day, without Frank Miller. You don't get any of them. You don't get any of the Daredevil. Even the Ben Affleck Daredevil, you're not getting without Frank Miller. Like, there is every character he touches in such a significant way really becomes core to the mythos of that character. It's really extraordinary. There's a lot of comic book creators out there, and I've read a lot of comic books. There are very few that have that lasting impact that not just impacts the books, but the pop culture wherever these characters show up. It's incredible.
Yeah, and I think for folks at home, Frank Miller also created Elektra and the Hand, that organization. And the Hand ended up being, as we know, the Ninja Turtles kind of did a goof on that. They call the Foot Clan.
The Foot.
But I mean, like, that's another thing. Like, he also, in a way, he almost helped give birth to the Ninja Turtles in a strange way.
Well, the origin of Daredevil is the origin of the Ninja Turtles.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
The ooze, yeah.
So it's kind of crazy how he inadvertently gave birth to these other things. I'm curious your opinion, but like, I think creating female characters sometimes could be a bit harder for superheroes. So like Harley Quinn, she became huge. And like, I know Elektra isn't as big as her, but to kind of make a character like her kind of stand time now and not be one of the classic Wonder Woman, blah, 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 and all that stuff. That's pretty significant, So early young, these are...
Especially during a time that wasn't really looking to be quite as diverse.
Exactly. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And he comes back to her. He does Elektra Assassin. He does Elektra Lived Again. He works with Bill Sienkiewicz and really comes up with it's very much filtered through sideways. It's very much filtered through the lens of, 80s, It lives in the
Mhm.
shadow of barbed wire, but she is she is her own person. She is the prime driver of the story. She has agency, her own wants. Those stories are not about Matt Murdock. That is a tougher thing to come by in 1986. 1988, pretty much any other comic, except maybe the ones written by Chris Claremont at the same time, who loves his ladies.
Nah.
Yeah. We'll have another episode about Chris Claremont because that'll be a fun one too. But
That's another
That's
very,
all.
very complicated
That's
figure.
yes, it sure is.
And I see also from here, which I knew but he created Ronin, which I want you guys to
Yep.
kind of expand upon. I also want to I would love to talk about also Sin City and then 300, because I'm very familiar with the films more than the comic books. But tell the folks at home, because I think actually like Ronin's kind of more of the, I'll say, lesser known of his works.
The biggest, although it is
Right.
one of his best.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe doesn't get enough
for sure.
praise,
Ronin
or they're the
taking
ones.
place in a post-apocalyptic New York.
Mm-hmm.
And he is, again, we're back to ninjas and samurais because Frank Miller loved.
Yep.
A lot of his work is inspired by some Japanese and works of art and anime and manga. And he kind of takes some of, I think I don't know if he said it in the book or or an interview somewhere, but that he felt like there wasn't enough story in the manga stuff and there wasn't enough action in the American stuff. And you put everything together, and that's sort of how he came up with his style of art and writing. And the Ronin is sort of the culmination of that.
Yeah. It's a real, nowadays, I think we call it a reductive take in, but
Yeah.
at a time where you don't have access to that much information, right? If you needed to know about Japanese culture, you either needed to have a connection to it, or you needed to go to the public library
And research it.
and research it. The idea that you were taking in and not reducing to a punchline, not reducing to something to be derided, you were like, no, this is a culture and an ethos that I think is heroic and cool. I'm going to bring this stuff in. I'm certainly not qualified to tell anybody whether he did a good job or a sensitive job, but I mean, he is one of several guys at this stage. And they all for sure knew each other because all of these guys worked inside of 6 city blocks at the DC offices and the Marvel offices. And like Frank in the 80s, they were all fascinated with this stuff. And it becomes this really interesting blend of philosophies. And also, it's crazy that it took as long as it did to be like Batman and Robin, Lone Wolf and Cub. That's the same. That's two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It really, like when, the Lone Wolf and Cub of it all read next to, or Ronin, read next to Dark Knight Returns, where you have Carrie Kelly. You're like, oh, it's so perfect. I can't believe it took until 1986 to put together. It becomes just such a nice component of both, right? Because you can then understand either way a better take on the characters.
Incredible.
And it looks fantastic. It's some of, I think,
beautiful.
It's really the designs, the everything.
Some of his collaborators, I mean, he does a lot of his own art.
Yes.
Obviously that's I think an underrated component of him.
It used to be an underrated component of him.
Yes. As we both trauma flash to all the covers from the most recent Marvel books. But he draws a lot of his own work. He drew for Dark Knight Returns with, I believe, his then wife, Lynn Varley.
Lynn Varley, yeah. She was the colorist, right?
Yeah.
I think Klaus was the inker.
Yes. Yeah, Klaus Janson. Yeah. But I mean, David Mazzucchelli in year one makes you feel like you are reading the real life version of a Dick Tracy story. It is adult and gritty, but it's also fully a cops and robbers story. And then John Romita's the other one. Yes, I think iconically linked to him.
I know for a while, I think it was on the Daredevil run, he was doing the art, and then it just became too much, and he really just did the layouts. And was it Mazzucchelli that was the one finishing the art at that point, or was it Varley?
So. I think it's
yeah, because it was just too much to write and draw. So he did the page layouts. His page layouts alone are something that should be studied. They're very, the way he lays out where the text is going, where the art's going, the flow of the panels is just as important as the actual art and story being told in a lot of his books. He does it in a way where it's very purposeful. Sometimes
Yes.
it just feels like pictures and words on a page, and I know which order to read them in. But with his, it's very purposeful as to how he's telling the story and getting his point across. It wouldn't work. The story wouldn't work as well if it wasn't laid out the way it was, and I think that's why he kept doing the layouts, even if he wasn't doing the finished art. But yeah, he was at a time one of the best artists in the industry, and it's funny because when he went and met Neil Adams for the first time, and he showed Neil Adams his work. I think I told you this because he was telling the story in the city. He presents his work to Neil Adams, and he says, "You should go back to Vermont and pump gas, kid."
Oof.
And then they continue to build a relationship. And Neil Adams basically, we don't get the Frank Miller we get without Neil Adams, but
Yeah.
they become very close, and he helps him get his jobs within DC and Marvel. But yeah, fantastic artist for sure back in the day.
Yeah.
And that art, I think, becomes key to how they end up being adapted into movies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure it does.
And I'm curious because it's, with Ronin, I'm sure maybe that was inspiration for the Ninja Turtles because they had their own Ronin. So,
The Last Ronin, it is, because it's also more of a post-apocalyptic
right.
New York.
So,
And
holy
the
cow.
samurai going around is the Last
Right.
Ronin. It once again draws heavily
Right,
from Frank
Yeah.
Miller's work.
Absolutely.
And then Sin City then came out from 91 to 92, which is crazy, man. Because I'm trying to think back when we were kids. We must have been 6 around there. And
Yeah.
I remember hearing about it.
Kev's laughing at me right now.
No.
So I remember,
No.
I remember
It's okay,
hearing
I'm old, I
about it,
know.
But look, I'm most familiar with the movie, which I love. I think it's one of Robert Rodriguez's best films.
Mhm.
I mean, I think it's a movie that's kind of gotten somewhat forgotten about in the comic book. I think it's excellent, and
Oh, it's great.
I love all the, I mean, and what a cast!
It's Dick Tracy on steroids.
Yeah, you have what a cast. You have Mickey Rourke, and you have
Mhm.
Bruce Willis. Then you have Jessica Alba, which I think is almost her last big film, maybe besides Fantastic Four. But then you have Elijah Woods in there.
Yellow Bastard.
Yeah. You have
Yeah.
Rosario Dawson, and great cast. And then, oh my God, what's his name? Wait, is it Benicio del Toro? Right? Or no? What's that guy? He has the gun in his head. It's the Chamber. You have Clive Owen, and what's the other? Oh my God,
I have to go through the IMDb.
is it Benicio del Toro? Anyway,
I don't think it's Benicio del Toro, but it is
had
an all-star cast.
what was her name? She
I
passed away.
love
Brittany
that
Murphy.
movie, and I love that comic book.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
movie was awesome. I mean, I think I'd also said another thing with, I think that was such a huge hit. 300 came out. Maybe they had it in the works, but
It is Benicio del Toro who plays him.
oh wow,
You're
it
right, it
looks
is him.
totally
Yeah.
different. Right? Maybe it's
You also get Michael Clark Duncan in that movie, don't forget.
right.
Yeah. The movie is fantastic, and I think it does a good job of bringing those pages to life.
Absolutely.
That was at a time that was after he left DC because he felt like DC was trying to censor writing and artists and comic books in general. And he kind of wanted a break from that. And he's like, I'm just going to do my own own stuff, my own personal stuff. And I'm going to do it. I think it was Dark Horse at that point.
Yeah.
And he went there so that he would have less limitations and could do the stories he wanted to do without being censored. And I think it worked out for the best. And it is essentially a Dick Tracy comic book. The villains are Dick Tracy villains, just more grotesque and less palatable for a family-friendly tone. But it is Dick Tracy on steroids. I think the black and white in the movie and even in the comic book with the red and the colors that kind
Yeah.
of pop on that is cinema. Absolute cinema when you see that. But the story of that is a great story. And again, it shows that when it comes to crime, it comes to a crime, cops and robbers story, no one does it better than Frank Miller. It just doesn't even matter. He doesn't need a Batman or a Daredevil or a Spider-Man or a Wolverine. He doesn't need it because you could just take his own people and here's Marv and here you go.
And that's a limited
And-
story, right? That's a limited series, right? I mean, maybe now they made it into a whole
I
thing.
don't know how limited. I feel like it went on for a while.
Okay.
So, because I had the same thing. I'm like, I don't remember actually how. So it ends up being serialized in Dark Horse Presents, which is how Dark Horse did a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
They have just like almost like
Like an anthology.
like an
sort of.
anthology.
Yeah.
Yeah, that ends up being like, hey, if this hits, we'll go more. We'll do more
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of grows from there. I think the movie's great. That and 300 exist at this point where like Iron Man had made money.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The studios knew. Actually, no, they probably predate Iron Man, but like
yeah, this is
they
like
do know that
2005. It's
money.
like Batman
The
Begins.
X-Men
so-
movies have made money. Yeah.
So you have this whole, the early 2000s, you had some really bangers. You had the X-Men, Batman Begins.
Spider-Man's had made money.
Yep.
The Spider-Man. Blade
So
might have been
they're
out
like-
at that point.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So they're like, well, we know these comic book people will show up and they'll buy a movie ticket.
Mhm.
So let's give everything a shot. And this is the type of movie I think that if more comic book movies had the kind of courage of their convictions stylistically like this,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have a conversation every 6 months about, Marvel fatigue. It's a beautiful, striking, creatively bold movie.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a little over the top and insane in places? Sure.
But yeah,
But
that's not a
Frodo
bad thing.
Baggins is a cannibal, basically.
Yeah.
So it's a little jarring, but it's such it is what it purports to be. That is Sin City, and it's fun, and Robert Rodriguez is such a good choice for the director.
Oh yeah, perfect choice for it. And I think Ken, you make a great point. I remember when this movie came out, it wasn't even labeled as a comic book. It was it was based on a comic book, but it felt like everyone was into seeing this. Adults saw it. It was like a sexy movie to take a date on. Like,
Mhm.
we're gonna see. It was like something like that Vegas quality to it. It was like,
Mhm.
it was dangerous to see. So yeah, awesome movie. And it's crazy because the sequel came out to that almost 10 years later, 2014.
yeah.
think
Was that
so.
a Dame to Kill for? Or something like that?
Yes. And
Yeah.
I never saw it. At that point, I had no interest. I don't know if it's good. I have no clue. But way too long for a sequel to come out.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, Sin City, sensational.
Rumor is he's going to try and bring that comic book back. He said someone asked him about that. Like, are you going to do more Sin City? And he's like, there are some things I'm not contractually allowed to talk about tonight. And that's how he ended that, which makes me feel like he's at least trying to do more Sin City.
Yeah.
Sin City set in today's world would be
Not
interesting.
crazy.
Way more
That
dangerous.
would be, yeah.
I would love him to do what he's been doing, I think, for some of his more successful crime adjacent
Mhm.
and like grittier stories that he's come back and done, which is he's got a natural spiritual successor in the industry. Ed Brubaker does not the same work, because Ed Brubaker is also a phenomenal espionage storyteller and all these things, superhero storyteller. But Ed Brubaker did years of that criminal thing,
Yeah.
which is very similar to, it's a little actually dialed down, more realistic, but it's a very Sin City type thing. I would love for the two of them to come back and do Sin City, because there's absolutely nothing to be said that people would not lose it to see Frank Miller and Ed Brubaker have one more Marv story,
Oh, yeah.
or something like that. I think people would really, I think people would come back to it, because this is a real kind of real ones know type story at this point, because Sin City is not a going concern, but if you've been around the space long enough and you've dug past the 100 graphic novels that Marvel and DC are kind of always selling you have heard of or been interested in Sin City. If you are into superhero movies or comic book movies and you've dug past the MCU, you've heard of Sin City, and it's kind of it would be nice to see it come back.
I agree. Yeah. And it still works. It's not like an outdated concept. It still works. So you can bring it back.
Absolutely. And I loved 300.
Oh, 300 is great.
Oh yeah.
The impact of 300 to a group of middle school boys in 2006 and or 6,
Oh, yeah.
7,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
I cannot overstate how hard that movie hit.
Yes. Because
We were talking about 300 last night.
I just saw The Odyssey maybe like a week ago, and then I wanted to watch it, so I have it on DVD, and I had a blast watching. I always liked it. I think it's Zack Snyder's probably, in my opinion, his best movie. It's tight, man. The movie is tight.
Mm-hmm.
Looks great, funny, and you have so many great actors, great cast. You have Gerard Butler, Michael Fassbender, and
Yes.
he was bulked up for that. But oh man,
And that's
so
what these
good.
characters are supposed to look like, by the way. Like one of my biggest problems with The Odyssey was I didn't feel like they looked like these big sort of warrior type of people. When you watch 300, you're like, these are Spartans. Like these
Yeah.
are warriors. Like they look, I don't want to fuck with these guys.
Yeah,
I
No.
don't have abs like that. You know how much just how much patience and how much like focus you have to have in life to have those abs. Like
Oh,
those are
yeah.
oh my
Well, I
God,
think
those
that's
are
why
warriors.
Nolan for more of the grounded thing. I don't think you had maybe a couple of guys back then who were that huge and massive. I think most people actually looked like that. Just
Yeah, but I want him to look. I want.
no,
him to
I
look
know,
like
I know, I
300.
know. But
I wanted to look like King Leonidas.
right. But that movie though, 300 though, excellent. Everything about it. The acting is great. What's her name? The girl who plays the queen, Lena.
It's Lena Headey.
It's Lena Headey, yeah.
Cersei
Yeah,
Lannister
it's
ends
Cer-
up being in that. Yeah.
She was great in that, and even though you have a lot of over the top moments and very macho, she does a great job of really keeping the sensitivity, and when she has to go in front of like the politicians to kind of like say her piece. That's a great moment, man.
Yeah.
The war at home kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it was so good, but great movie and tight, man. And it was a short film. It was less than 2 hours, I think. It was like
The sequel wasn't bad either. The second one.
I never
The-
that came out.
Yeah.
Let me see, 2000.
The sequel's
Hey.
2014. Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
big,
sorry, you're
big
right,
years for
correct.
Frank Miller
2000
sequels.
Right, and that.
Big year for Frank Miller.
Oh my
sequel.
God, you're right. I misread that. Yeah, 2014. That's too much of a huge gap.
This is what this is. It again. There are smarter people than me who could be like, hey, there are a lot of things in here. Maybe you needed to tone it. Maybe that's fine. Smarter people than me for that. But kicking the dude into the hole, awesome.
Yep.
Yeah,
My arrows will blot out the sun. Then we will fight in the shade.
Yep.
Awesome.
Perfect. It's such a great line.
yeah. So many.
So good.
Yeah, I feel like nowadays you don't even have quotable films. I can't quote anything besides it turns into a meme. Like, ooh, I'm about to make a name for myself, but but nothing that's. But besides that, I can't really think of. But yeah, that movie has so many good ones. I think one of my favorite scenes in that movie, actually, there isn't any violence in it. It's when right before Leonidas sees Xerxes, and he's like eating an apple. They're like stabbing making sure everyone's dead. Basically, who they just whip their ass. He's eating this apple, and anyway, I think Michael Fassbender goes, "They want to meet you. They want to talk to you." And he's like, "Do you want us to come with you?" He's like, "Oh, let's go by myself." And he's like, "Well, pray that they kill me. Then all Sparta's gonna come. Like, I hope they do kill me.
Yeah.
It's so badass." And right there, he's like, "There's no reason why we can't be civil." And there's just carnage everywhere. He's eating his apple, and it's so good. And then his whole conversation with her is excellent. Those back-to-back scenes are great acting, great writing, beautiful, beautiful. Best moments of the movie, really, honestly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that sequel is underrated. I don't know if it's like a good piece of cinema, but it includes in the same way that the Sin City sequel is. It brings in a person who, the more I talk about it and we talk about it, the more I'm like, this person was made to be a Frank Miller actress. Eva Green?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love her. Yes.
She's in both, and it's like, you could drop her back in time. She could play Elektra in an 80s Elektra movie. I'm like, oh, this is, she was made to be the dame to kill for, and she's the crazy Navy admiral in the second one. But I think this movie is very similar to Sin City, and then it's like, well, this is what the comic book looks like. We made the comic book a movie. The Zack Snyder splashes of blood and everything like that. That's what the comic book looks like. The comic book is short.
Yeah. And it wasn't just
The comic book's not long at all.
Yeah, it wasn't just style over substance. Both those movies are great, and the style of the film helped enhance the tone of it. It wasn't just like slapped on there, and it doesn't add anything. It's just like pump it out, make more content thing. But two,
You know what I thought was cool about 300, the comic book, not the book itself, but I was in the Louvre in Paris, and it was by chance that when we happened to be in the Louvre in Paris, there was a comic book exhibit there. And I'm like, oh, well, I want to see that. And Jen was like, we can't even go on vacation without comic books being, we're in the Louvre. There's the Mona Lisa's here, and you're going to the comic book exhibit.
right.
And I go there, and it's all like mostly like European artists and things like that. And then I'm walking through, and I'm like, this looks familiar. And I start going. There's a huge Frank Miller exhibit at this point in the Louvre of all the original art pages of 300. And there was like this whole big thing. I'm like, and there was no other American like comic book artists or writers or anything there. The only piece of any sort of American comic book history was 300, which just shows how global that story is and how it resonates with a worldwide audience, that it can hit the Louvre. I thought that was always pretty cool.
Yeah.
He's a guy who leaves an impact. There's actually, I can't believe I forgot it as big of an X-Men guy as I am. There's the other character that he is
Wolverine
kind of touched is Wolverine.
The one through four, the 4-part mini.
Yeah, it's another one where I think if you look at the character critically, he's not himself for most of the character's first couple years. He's a guy with claws. You don't learn much about him. He's got a bad history. He becomes who he is in an issue of X-Men when he gets knocked through the floor and he's swearing to get revenge. Now it's my turn. But all of the things that later on become iconic parts of who he is and character traits they build whole movies off of, whole comic book runs off of, are all from 4 issues of Frank Miller. Where
that's where you get Mariko, right?
Yep.
I think that's you get the origin of Mariko, her debut.
Wouldn't you know it? Wolverine's also a samurai.
Also a samurai,
Yes,
yeah.
that's right. Yeah. Holy cow.
Yep.
And the covers for those 4 issues are like
the-
iconic.
The Bring It On thing,
Yeah.
he does.
Yeah.
One of the most homaged covers of all time.
Ever. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No question.
We'd be remiss if we're talking about all the positives that Frank Miller has done to not mention at least a few of some of the things that were misses. If we're going to talk about the hits, to be fair. So, what do you think, Kev, is the biggest miss? If you had to pick just your biggest miss, I'm curious if it's the same one that I have.
The Superman fan in me wants to say it's the Superman one that maybe you have, but as an overall person in the world, I got to say Holy Terror.
Okay.
Holy Terror, which you should, I don't want to tell anybody not to read the man's work, but like it's truly, it's not necessarily something you need to engage with, at least not engage with uncritically. It is a story that he allegedly apparently came up with as a Batman story immediately after 9/11.
After 9/11, yeah.
And it was originally Batman versus Al Qaeda or whoever,
whatever he was,
Frank
whatever
was
his
aware of
stand-in
as the
for,
boogeyman
yeah.
at the time. And DC Comics was like, oh, absolutely not. Like, I think they greenlit it, and then they saw like maybe 5% of it, and they were like, we cannot allow you to do this. No, thank you. And it germinated for 15-ish years before they finally got somebody to put it out. And it has not evolved emotionally from that very first time Frank Miller turned on the news and saw the towers. And that comes from a very raw place. Everybody's art reflected that moment in time in a very raw way, but it is not a nuanced conversation about anything. It is not even a particularly, I think, great story. It's a revenge story, and it ends up being, I think, pretty rough. It's not something I can tell you that I'm ever going to read a second time.
Yeah, I am going to put a Superman Year One as his lowest of lows for me. I mean, there's a lot of Lori Lamaris in that book that no one really needed.
So much time with Lori Lamaris.
So much time with a mermaid that no one asked for. But he didn't even do the art for that one though. Wasn't that like John Romita who did the art?
Yeah.
And in his worst, John Romita at his worst, everything about that book failed. But yeah, that's my lowest for him. I don't like the oversized format. That makes me immediately turned off. I don't like the story. I don't like all the Lori Lamaris of it. I don't think he gets the characterization of Superman right in that one. But I think the world would say the sequels to The Dark Knight are probably his lowest of lows. The second one, everyone, I remember buying it. I remember going into a mock time. We were still on Hempstead Turnpike at the time. Maybe the second store on Hempstead Turnpike after the move. I don't remember if it was the first or the second floor store. And I remember it coming out, prestige format again. You know, I remember the cover with the fist. It was the fist with the. I'm like, I cannot wait for history to repeat itself. And I remember reading it and saying, "What the fuck did I just read?"
It's a rough one. There's a lot of interesting stuff in there that like doesn't pan out anywhere else, but the digital art is fascinating. He's playing with like a new art form, which is neat. But his effort to expand into the larger DC universe in that story is bizarre in a lot of places. You know, The Question and Green Arrow as point counterpoint, I like.
Yeah, I mean that's why it was one of the reasons I thought I was going to love this, because it's The Question, and you know how I feel about The Question.
You love The Question. We both love The Question.
Yeah.
His Wonder Woman also takes really a center stage in that, in a way that is not a version of that character I think that resonates with pretty much anybody who likes that character. It is all warrior, goddess of peace, which, you know, she would fit in 300.
Yeah.
Her version.
And then the Master Race, DK3, the Master Race.
Which I guess is it's Kryptonians, right?
It's Kryptonians.
It's Kryptonians and Kandor and the Kid.
Because they find a way to enlarge the Kandorians, right? Because I think in the second one, Kandor is held captive, and that's how Lex and Brainiac as fake Ronald Reagan, I think it was supposed to be, or something like that. Or was it Nixon? Yeah. I forget who they were parodying at that point. It's been so long, but
yeah,
it's a computer generated president that's really Brainiac, and they use
Brainiac,
yeah, and they used Kandor to like basically stop Superman,
blackmail
him,
to blackmail him. And then I think
they eventually enlarge it
And then I think
free them.
it's a priest thing, right? It's like
Yeah.
a religious extremism thing out of
Yeah.
Candor, right? It's at the Church
Yes.
of Rao or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a rough one. DC, that one I was fully like, I was more than stocking shelves at the comic book store at that time. I was like engaged with the process of buying and
Right.
selling the comics for the store. And DC was like, this is going to be the biggest thing in the world. Do you remember the slipcases for that? Do you remember you
Yeah.
had to, they sold perfect bound issues and they sold you a box with the first issue so you could put them all in. So
Yeah.
you're going to want to preserve this for posterity.
And it wasn't even just that the third one had, I think it was like 8 issues too, which was very long.
Yeah.
But there was also, it was like 8 issues of the main series, and then was like 5 or 6 one-shots. Like there was like a Flash one, I think.
Flash got one. I want to say Adam got one.
Yeah.
I think, was it?
I think the Supergirl, whatever her name.
The
I don't know if she
daughter,
was-
yeah.
The daughter, she got one.
And I think, I think it was right. It was close in proximity to that they did the one that shows you how Joker killed Robin, which is, fun fact, a thing that if you go back and look at the timeline, that's a Frank Miller idea.
Yeah.
Jason Todd was dead in Dark Knight Returns
Yeah.
while Jason Todd was alive in the ongoing book.
And yeah. That's what you get. He was a good soldier.
He was a good soldier, which
Good soldier.
I'm glad we've gotten away from that as a Robin.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're his sons again, not his soldiers.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dark Knight 3 is a rough one.
And then you think we're done, and then they come out with the one-shot, The Golden Child.
I know, I read it too. I was trying to like get in my head all the Frank that I've read and the stuff I liked.
It's very forgettable.
I couldn't even super tell you what's in that book. I remember
There's another baby. They have another baby.
I think they have a son.
I think it's Jonathan Kent. It's
Yeah.
always Jonathan Kent.
It's always Jonathan Kent. And no one's still beaten child Jonathan Kent from the Tomasi run, but like it's a rough one. The Golden Child's a rough one.
I think as we're kind of wrapping up now, there's some interesting other stuff that I think this is accurate, but he's also does some screenwriting. He did RoboCop 2.
He did. I
And-
think he did 3 also.
Yep, 3. Another one called, I'm not familiar with, the Jugular Wine, A Vampire Odyssey. Speaking of Odysseys.
I don't know that one.
And then the one he, I believe, wrote and directed was The Spirit, which I think was a...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually don't think that movie's as bad as people say it is.
I remember seeing it once, and I have no memory of it, honestly. So I don't think I hated it. It was just like a one.
Stylistically, it looked very
Yeah,
cute.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's very in the vein of Sin City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they take a lot from how they put together Sin City.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Real quick with his movies, you have this Frank Miller run. 2003 was Daredevil, then 2005 was Sin City, 2006 was 300, and then 2008 was Spirit. So pretty interesting how Hollywood was like, hey, bam, 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 bam. So
Yeah.
really great stuff.
And I think he's one of the few people that has won like every major award that a comic book artist and writer can get. He has an Inkpot. He has Harvey Awards. He has Eisner Awards. I think he won Kirby Awards. I don't think there's an award that exists in comic books that he hasn't won. He's got to be one of the most decorated
Gotta be.
comic book creators of all time.
Yeah.
Gotta be.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets lost, I think, in the fact that it's like the fact that you can still go see the Stones play and you can watch them be old men on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently their shows are still great. I'd love to see them still.
Oh, yeah.
But like Frank Miller didn't get a kind of, Frank Miller didn't stop. And he kind of carried through everything that changed the world, right? 9/11 and graphic design changes and kind of a very grimdark post-Ultimate Universe period of comic book writing. And because we've seen him go through all of this, we are not just left with the body of work that's the unbelievable highs. And it creates a really interesting nuance to talk about the guy's career because he's earned every one of those awards. And I don't know anybody who seriously thinks about this stuff that wouldn't say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Kevin, thanks for coming on, man. Wow.
It was awesome. I loved it.
So articulate and well-spoken, and the knowledge is unbelievable. And we're going to have you back
Anytime.
more often. Thanks for listening, folks. Same time, same table.
Have a good one.
Boys and girls, lunchtime is over. For more information, visit their website at coolkidslunchtable.podbean.com. Follow the boys on all social media platforms. Just search Cool Kids Lunch Table Podcast. Now get to class before you get detention.